and I want to
Hello.
say bonjour,
Bonjour.
bonjour. We're gonna, as you could imagine from my my beret today, we're gonna start talking about France,
Nice.
which that's going to be the prompt. A podcast or an interview, it's a bit like Chat GPT. You need a good prompt at the beginning, and then you do prompt engineering and maybe a little bit of in context learning and a little bit of reinforcement at the end of the day, right?
Totally.
Just our shaman in residence is also French and is also an AI expert. I know we're not here to talk about that, of course. I
Mhm.
want to make sure my mask fits well, though. Oh, I don't want to dox myself by mistake. All right. So before we start, this is the Isabelle Nakamoto show, the always cryptic um, person of mystery in crypto. I've been around for some years, certainly in crypto years, quite a few years. I might or might not be real, but I'm going to say what I think. And my co-host, my we both guest and host in each other's podcast in some ways. Here, Joss, Jocelyn Richard, Jocelyn Richard, depending of whether we pronounce it the French or the American way. He is a extraordinary shaman, tech person, and all around super nice person, despite the fact that
It
he's often based in Normandy instead of Brittany.
mm. I really to challenge you, and those day I challenged you, and you reacted, so I'm happy. It's as a shaman, I need to challenge a bit, and so you can broader perspective. That's it.
Yes, yes. Anything before we start? Anything to say about you and about your work and about shamanism? And then we'll start with France.
This weekend, I really felt that I need now to Isabel to go public and reveal to everyone that I am a shaman. Even on my website, professional website, it's not really clear. People can't take, I don't give availability, and they can't say, oh, I want to call you that time. So I have to put that strongly, more strongly. And I feel that's now my way. I am transitioning from technical web to really something spiritual, and I think I can help people on that subject.
Do you think one day AI can do shamanism?
Oh, yeah, I will reveal lots
We were
and
about to talk
lots,
about
but
cheese, but we branched out here on will AI be able to do shamanism?
I think hidden or forgotten recipe and manner and philosophy and way of being would be revealed at some point by AI, because it will help to decrypt some elements that are like in Egypt or China or Chinese that haven't been so much public. And I think lots of things will be revealed by that one.
Before we continue, I want to acknowledge Shahir Sheikh, our producer, who's there in the background, make this possible every week. This and many other podcasts, by the way, and it requires behind the scene a lot of work, and it's not easy for many reasons. It's not easy. So thank you, Shahir. And make sure, by the way, Shahir, when you put these videos, tag yourself so people can follow you. You're absolutely a wonderful person to follow and connect with. Uh, so, in my work, I'm doing many things. One of the things I do is that I build AI with a team of wonderful engineers. a lot of French engineers. We call them the French engineers. And and as you were describing shamanism, one way to think about it is that an AI, now we're veering in philosophy, an AI is nearly more than a piece of code. AI is not quite a person, but more than a piece of code. And is our role to be the shaman for the AI? What do you think?
I think what's available is really knowledge. And as I said previously, hidden knowledge that you will be able to have. That's the first step to become a shaman, is to interest to knowledge, to get that way wisdom, and to broader, to interest more in the world and to interest to every part of the world. AI contains lots of things, lots of information, and doesn't judge or try not to judge that at the end, or we are trying to put it not to judge. But that's interesting because that's a way, that's in some, that's some wisdom. Try to say, okay, get information and never get confused with too much emotion, whatever is the information about. So that's interesting to have this completely neutral, or try to be neutral, reacting chat. And in a way that what people say, I really like to work with AI because I can ask to do a task, and the task I can ask, talk to, and to the AI, and it will never complain. So in a way, that's really wisdom. Only a human with a lot of wisdom can do things without complaining and say, "Oh, that's probably my path," or something like
Uh, I, I, I tell members of my family, you should never complain. I never heard my dad complain. I think I remember one time feeling that he was discouraged.
that.
Only
Okay.
one time, actually, in his life. But
Mhm.
I don't remember him complaining a single time.
Mm.
And so sometimes, if I feel like complaining, I tell people around me, it's not complaining, it's venting.
Yeah.
It's venting. So it's a little different. There's a slight difference between the two.
Mhm.
So AI doesn't complain. That's not the only thing about AI uh, that is so interesting to me right now. So I'm working on that AI,
Mhm.
and I started to consider that AI like a person. Now,
Mhm.
good is that bad? I don't know, but
I
for me,
it's difficult not to, because you I'm starting with still starting with, "Please, can you
right.
put a little bit of nice word,"
Well, but
even
it's
if it's
actually
just computer.
more precisely, it's not just a person; it's a child. And we're parents. As our job is to make sure that she grows into a well-adjusted, she has a job, ideally. She does something interesting. She
Mhm.
learns from us. Now, sometimes we want to teach our AI more than she wants to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be better actually to let her learn by herself through
Mhm.
experience. Sometimes we should challenge, to your earlier point about challenging each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes our job should not be to feed premesticated knowledge, all formatted, all curated, like bouillie, puree of knowledge, easy to digest. Maybe not. Maybe the idea is to let our young AI learn by learning to eat by herself. Of course, learning to even seek the food, the data, the food, the learning data. Of course, the AI is there to ingest knowledge, high quality food, ingestible food. We don't want the AI to get an indigestion,
Mhm.
throw up,
Mm.
or worse. We don't want any of that.
Yeah.
But maybe it needs to, from time, to learn what she should eat and she shouldn't eat. We won't be always there to feed her what she needs.
Probably that could be one virtue, which is to have an AI, looking at an AI trying to grow by itself. I think some people will try to do exactly the experiment you are describing, and see how an AI can we will try to build by yourself the knowledge, and what no kind of knowledge, and what way she will take to get knowledge, and which one she will consider preference to have preference. I think there is a really strong and interesting experiment to do. Having with basic skill, and doing what's done with machine learning, and trying by yourself
Yeah.
with a small direction, and see how it grows later.
So I've got a shamanic question, unrelated to AI, unrelated to cheese. We might or might not go back to the question of cheese. Little things bother us, right? We are human. We have little, and often it's lack of alignment or little imperfection, little
Mm.
things. For example, this is not centered. It drives me crazy. It has to
Oh,
be centered. And I don't, maybe the audience doesn't care. So it drives
we,
me absolutely
we,
bananas. It's
I
centered
think we,
on the ridge of my nose.
yeah,
It's still not centered.
you are more ashamed of that fact, because it's imperfection, and it can be beautiful, because it's not done by a computer who would align it. It's done
Okay.
by chance.
No, it's not perfect at all. It needs to be centered, Josh. It needs to be
That's
centered.
that's what I call principle, and you like certain principle to be applied.
But it's actually one of the fascinating things about nature, by the way, and beauty is
Mhm.
how it's about symmetry.
Yeah.
It's about symmetry. Why is it that we're so asymmetrical inside, and we, not humans, animals, the same, right? Our heart is on one side. Okay, some organs are symmetrical. The code just duplicated itself. That was it's like code, right? It was it re, re, it made sense evolutionary. Other organs are not symmetrical. I'm fascinated by that. But on the outside, we are all symmetrical. They are very rare animal exceptions. Some crabs have a big claw. Some fish has a flat, but their face is sideways. But
Mm,
they are extremely rare, right?
mm,
Extremely rare. So beauty, from an evolutionary standpoint, has been designed for symmetry. For symmetry. So that thing needs to be in the middle of Isabel's. Absolutely. There's no. I know. No. Am I being
I have no problem with that not being aligned. It it
okay?
it it gives another perspective.
All right.
And being always aligned and symmetric, you will have always the same perspective. But being unbalanced on some point, you get another perspective which still have its interest.
Here's the other interesting thing. Beret.
Yeah.
Why are they worn in a absolutely on purpose, designed asymmetrical way? And actually, even you remember Casablanca,
Mm,
Captain Renault, it was fashionable for military of a certain rank to wear their kepi in a non-symmetrical way. It
right.
was not just for that movie. It was actually a thing, right?
Yes.
Or a pocket handkerchief, right? First, it's only on one side, okay, but also they need to be nearly, at least in France, you need to express yourself by having them all very, you know, you don't want the American extremely curated handkerchief. In France, it was supposed to explode into that weird, unique thing.
Yeah.
So I know you're now looking at it from a shaman, but when you're or when you were coding, what's beauty for you from a coding standpoint and symmetrical standpoint?
That's why I always stick to a Ruby language and couldn't go back. As I can explain, I learned the web with one language, which is called PHP. And once I get to Ruby, and at some point I returned to PHP. I couldn't, so I stick to Ruby. Why I'm saying that is because Ruby is made from a person who is from Japan, and you can see that. And the idea is why you are coding in a like a poem-like way. So that's what I really like in coding, is to have something simple and precise and readable. That, that's what I feel. Oh, this code is nice. The code is nice if it's really simple to read and like a small text or like a small poem.
I did not know that Ruby came from Japan,
Yeah,
but I I actually admire the Japanese aesthetics because it's based on minimalism,
exactly.
simplicity, and expressivity.
Yeah.
Right? It's the movement, it's the imprecision, it's a right.
You really find that in Ruby. You really find that someone who is living in Japan and not living in US. Most of the language, I've got a really West point of view, and for that one, especially, it's another way of coding, and that's why people feel it's so different, even if it can look like other what we call JavaScript or Python. Similarly, it is using same techniques, but you think completely different differently, and it's very really what we call idiomatic, like in language, like different. You sentence is done certain way in English and in French it's not the same. You really have that in programming language, and in Ruby, the way of coding, you you need to be readable, and if you are making things too complex, it's obvious. You can see it. And I really know the task, the preferred task of Ruby coder is to reduce the number of lines and maintain the complete readability. So it's not compressing, it's really simplifying and having the thing working, and not a lot of line and a complete readability of the code. So that's why I really like it.
I'm going to ask a provocative question on purpose.
Mhm.
When did Ruby peak?
That's really interesting. I think it's still in 2006. That was thanks to Ruby on Rails, which is just what we call a framework, would put Ruby in front of everyone and people learn about it. Afterwards, it just go down. And now, because it gives you a way to construct things really rapidly, you can construct quickly with it. People are returning back to it because they are tired of other language which require more constraint and more thoughts, more cognitive weight. And with
Um,
Ruby, you can really manage to start things quickly and have things done.
what is the up and coming outside of Ruby maybe having a second wind? What is the up and coming language that is really very hot right now in programming world?
I really hate, I don't say that word so often, JavaScript for one reason. It's that the more you are writing with it, the more you can make nebulous things, and you have to think completely differently. I know that a lot of people likes it for that reason, but for me, it's too difficult to even think with that way. You have to put things that can do things, and you have to elaborate in advance what things can do where. So that's too complex for me. That's the more
In
complex.
JavaScript is still up and coming. It's still
Oh,
gathering momentum.
that's the most used. That's the one who still has got the lead.
Yeah.
So, if you want some history, PHP was the first one. Then came at some point Ruby. Then JavaScript take it over, and then now everyone is uh, competing, and even Python, which was uh, reserved for university, is also coming. So there is
Right.
this strange war of
Yeah.
anyone wanted to win, but it's more. I think percentage, considering it's more things can go up and down again.
Now, Python, of course, is hard in part because that's a language of data science and of AI. You
Mhm.
interact with the API of ChatGPT using Python, isn't it?
Mm. That's a preferred one, and most nearly 99% of AI project really made out of Python. You still can interact with AI library with others, but people tend to stick with that because that's the one who was used at first place in AI. Yes.
If someone has a bit of a legacy data science asset with standard data, I would say standard analytics, and they build it on R. I cannot say R. My mouth doesn't make the sound R to non-French people, but I think you understand R. In
Mhm.
French, we say R for
Uh,
R.
yeah.
Um, so is it won't talk with AI then very easily. So
uh,
time to shift to Python, or both R and Python can live together happily?
I think every that's the same question. Every now every one wants to stay in their language and try to interact with AI because as AI became simple to interact with, you need less to really learn Python to use it. So now people are trying to discuss directly with ChatGPT, as simple as that, and they can do it in any language, even if in R. So probably in the future, Python will not be so needed in AI, or only for people who are really w- doing VR or wiring.
If your job is to structure data, to curate data, to annotate
Mhm.
data,
Mhm.
i- is a large language model the 1 petabyte data set, I don't know how many trainable parameter has ChatGPT 3.5? I don't know, a half a billion? Big numbers of trainable
Multiple billion, yeah.
billion.
Mm.
Um, so is bigness just gonna win over data structure and data
No, it's
curation?
always the same. You always at a frontier
Uh-huh.
where that the model is too large and you cut it. You always cut it. You do always do the same thing. You cut it in smaller pieces, and you are changing algorithm. So a large language model will change and are on the way of changing, and that will be called differently, and that will be more a sequence of different things. The larger you get, the more you are more and more inclined to reduce that, to cut that in pieces, and to change algorithm. Probably one a lot of people are saying that GPT-5 will never be there, and that will be named differently because they will no longer use uh, what is behind the GPT. And I don't remember what was letter means, but that's the idea. And it's iterative, and we are in the fifth iteration. And each time you go in the iteration, you change the name because you are changing the way you are thinking about it. So yes, things will change, and things will be more powerful, but by simplifying and cutting in our
Mhm.
risk.
The really powerful AI, of course, is the AI that gets smarter faster when it's used more.
Mhm.
uh, so it's an AI that learn more from an interaction than it teaches nearly. uh, from the question it asks, from the reinforcement
I
it
think
gets.
it's yeah, it's the idea for OpenAI to have so much people using it so they can collect and understand what people want, and targeting those certain needs on the language and reinforcing the learning on that. So you always, it's like in the business, you can only sell if people are interested. And I think that in AI will specialize for the most task that will be asked for. Thanks to statistics, model will change and will adapt to the real need of person.
What that means, though, is that once an AI emerge in
Mhm.
dominance in a special area, uh, let's say an AI to predict stocks for a second.
Yeah.
You build an AI to predict stocks, and I don't know if it's a good example because, yeah, I guess it would learn from how well it did. Let's say an AI
Yeah.
predicts.
You can ask it to reinforce itself and
Wait,
to decide if that was good or bad and to change strategy accordingly. And I think you get at the end the best strategist in
wait.
stocks.
It's I had another image in my mind. We only have 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
But my question, my point is the following: if if an AI start to show dominance, and if that dominance leads to more use,
Mhm.
isn't it become a immortal being that essentially is going to be impossible to compete with?
The only way to end this immortal, as you say, is to shut down the server. If someone is shutting down the server of OpenAI, the thing go, go to death.
Like
So you are immortal until there is
bugged
no
out.
longer
Yeah.
electricity or anything like that.
Um, we are 2 minutes before
Okay.
the end of this segment, and all of our listeners know what that means. It means that Joss is going to listen to the vibe around him and from this conversation in a way that either is related to what we said or perhaps has no link whatsoever to what we just said, is going to leave us with a message. Uh, Perhaps that will be clear, perhaps that will be cryptic, but it's always interesting.
Sometimes the best is to stay still and sit.